Public speaking is not something that you can learn instantly or easily. It's kind of like going to the gym. You can't just go to the gym in one day and expect to become buff.
Hi, I'm Nancy Hardcastle, and today I'm talking to Paritosh Gupta. Hi, Paritosh. Thanks for talking to me today.
And Nancy, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So these days, there is an app for everything, and there are even apps for public speaking. And Paritosh here is an expert on this. He is the co-creator of an app called Orai, which gives you speaking feedback in real time. And I'm so impressed with him and his partner. They've already been featured in Fast Company, Wired, on CNBC, and in The Guardian. So congratulations for your success already.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to begin by having you tell us something interesting that happened in the process of you creating your app.
One interesting thing that I realized as we were working on Orai is public speaking is not something that you can learn instantly or easily. It's kind of like going to the gym. You can't just go to the gym in one day and expect to become buff. You need to go in every day, put in the time, and slowly and suddenly you see the results. For me, learning to become a better communicator, that kind of happened as I was pitching Orai in the past 2.5 years. When I started to where I am now, I feel like I've definitely improved. In the middle, somewhere around 2000, end of 2017, is where I realized that I actually have changed so much. I remember in the early days, I used to always have like my knees heavy, palms are super sweaty, and just like feeling nervous all around and just trying to hoping to God that I will not forget any of my lines and people won't judge me too bad. So that was like I had a real fear of public speaking and really being afraid of messing up. That was like one of the biggest fears that I had. And when that really comes into your mind, when you're like really talking and presenting, and if that comes into your mind, that's game over. That really bogs down any interesting thing you really might have to say. So I remember in sometime end of 2017, I was pitching Orai at this college pitch competition, and
At,
it
at a
was
college what? Sorry? A college what?
at a college at a competition organized by a college in somewhere in Texas,
Okay.
where they wanted students to pitch their ideas
Oh,
to win a prize.
wow.
Right. So this was done in a mega grand stage. So they had an entire baseball stadium that they had booked, and in the dugout area where the players sit, there were a bunch of judges and mentors sitting, and not even like one or two, there were 20 of them just sitting in that dugout area. And then they made you stand, and then your video was being projected on the big screens that they have on one of the stadiums, and you had to pitch to those mentors and judges.
Wow.
So yeah,
That's intimidating.
so that's where I really feel like I found my strength in public speaking. That's for the first time where I felt that I finally feel like I have a command in public speaking. That was the first time I was super scared before going there because it was such an intimidating stage.
Sure.
And then when I started speaking, and as I started with a good intro, as I knew I was prepared as I was going, I could just feel that command coming into my audience.
Yeah.
And once you know what you're doing is going right, just feel like the audience is in your control. You are puppet master and the audience is your puppet. If you want to make them laugh, you can make them laugh. If you want to make them cry, you can make them cry. It's just all about how you're expressing it. And that's when I really started feeling that, wow, this is such a journey. You learn so many different skills, so many different things. And once you really start feeling that you know what you're doing, you start feeling a little bit confident. It's intoxicating. That feeling of being a confident public speaker, it's so intoxicating.
Yes, I have to agree. I still remember, I actually wrote about this recently. My first experience public speaking, I was in seventh grade. And I remember standing at the front of the room of an auditorium because I made it to the final round of the competition. And so there was a room full of adults, and I thought, This is amazing. All I have to do is stand up here, and all the adults are watching me and listening to me. It feels like a lot of power.
Right? Yeah,
So now you like it.
I agree.
Now you're not so deathly afraid of public speaking.
I would say time to time the fear still comes to
Sure,
me,
sure.
but you learn to ignore it as and more you practice. You start to get more confident in yourself and your skills that no matter where you are, you'll be able to deliver effectively and you'll be able to communicate your ideas.
I agree. That's a great story too. I love people that when they make progress, and overcome their fears. That's awesome. So tell us about this app. Tell us how it works and why someone would want to use your app.
Yeah, so when we started Orai, we started talking with a lot of communication coaches, speech coaches, we started reading about it, and we were trying to figure out, well, what are some of the basic and core factors that we can give people feedback on that will help them improve. You're not looking to take speakers who are already like top class speakers and taking them to the next level. That's not necessarily what Orai is
Mm,
being made for.
mm,
We realized that there were a lot of basic things like your use of filler words like ums, like basically, which kind of hamper your credibility as a speaker or decrease your confidence, perceived confidence. Your energy variation. Are you one of the speakers who speaks in a continuous monotone and boring voice and makes the entire audience fall asleep? You don't want to do that. You want to be enthusiastic and energetic.
mm.
So your energy, your pacing, are you speaking too fast or too slow? Your clarity, are you enunciating things clearly? And your use of pauses. Are you pausing at the right places to let your audience time to think about what you're speaking, to give your audience time to think about what you're speaking?
Mm.
Those are the five core factors that we realized are really important. And we can build an AI which analyzes all of these and gives you feedback and helps you improve. So we started working on it, and one by one, we started nailing each of these specs down. And once we had something that we were happy to give, that we were ready with, and we could analyze in real time, that's when we released the application. So today, you can use Orai, record any speech that you have, and it gives you instant feedback within 10 seconds of any speech that you give, feedback on the use of filler words, pauses, energy, clarity, and your pacing.
So if I'm talking, like this, then it's gonna tell me what I'm doing. So it's so horribly bad.
Yeah, definitely. It's gonna definitely give you guidance. Like it's not gonna completely criticize you. It's gonna try to give you some positive and some negative feedback to help you slowly grow as a speaker
So it's
and
not
to
gonna say,
give you
"What are you doing?"
yeah,
It's gonna be nice to me.
yeah. It's gonna be nice to you, but with an undertone, the fact that hey, these are places where you're doing wrong and this is what you need to improve.
Hmm. Hmm. That's great. And so, do you speak into it? Like you just have it on your phone and you just say your speech or a portion of your speech?
Yeah, that's definitely how easy you want it to become. You just open the application, select hey, I want to record for a practice speech that I have, or hey, I just want to record anything that I want. You just hit the record button and you speak.
Hmm.
In the app, we also have created certain lessons. So if you want to practice how to reduce your filler words, or how to modulate your energy, or how to control pacing, in these lessons we've added examples of good speakers, bad speakers, and given like at least like one tip per lesson so that people can practice and learn to become a better communicator.
It has the idea of you're starting at a certain point and then you take a lesson and you get some feedback and you take another lesson and you get some more feedback and so that you can see your progress. Is that right?
Yeah, that's that you can see your progress and also learn some new knowledge about public speaking. Because one thing I've seen is that public speaking is not really taught anywhere, although it's one of the most important skills that we use in our professional and our personal lives. You don't
Yes.
necessarily learn communication anywhere. It's so surprising. Colleges do have like maybe one course on it sometimes, if you're
Mm-hmm.
lucky.
Mm-hmm.
But most of communication is something we just learn by observing our elders, observing
Mm-hmm.
other people, observing more
Mm-hmm.
confident communicators.
Right.
So that's something that I've learned is public speaking is not taught and it's such a critical skill. So we need to somehow put in the time and resources to become effective
Mm.
communicators.
And I think that you could argue now more than ever because video is sort of taking over. I don't want to say it's going to put print out, make it obsolete, but there's certainly more video and there's more demand on any kind of business person to go on video, right? To be able to speak and be eloquent.
That's definitely true. Even for like small companies, big companies, they have to like present their brand, maybe create Instagram videos, anything, promote, go on interviews, talk shows, or even for people higher up in management in different bigger companies. It's incredible that now there's so much more media and you're out there so much more. Your video and audio is out there so much more that you have to be on point. And every time you're talking, you're representing a company, a brand. So I completely agree with you.
It sounds like this is a way that you could work at your own convenience to improve your skills, go at your own pace. I imagine it's not that expensive. We'll talk about that in a minute.
That was definitely one of the biggest points of creating Orai is it's like an instant on-demand public speaking helper right in your pocket.
Which is really the way that education, it's the direction, but in the sense that it's already arrived. Like there's so much that you can already learn on demand. So why not public speaking as well? So
I agree.
How did you originally start this? What was it that made you say, I really think that this is a need? Where did you see it? And tell us the backstory.
I feel there are two reasons behind why we created Orai. For me, one of them was the fact that as a computer scientist, I was seeing all this amazing research being done in the speech research area. But the problem was that most of this was being used to create speech-to-text engines or text-to-speech engines. No one was like really using all of this research, amazing technologies, by the way, to try and put it into the hands of people and say that, hey, instead of creating automated tools, why don't we use this to actually help humans communicate better rather than machines communicate better? So that's what was like one of my biggest impetus. What was one of the biggest reasons why I created Orai.
So I got
the second one.
So 1 second.
Right,
So so I'm really clear. So you were seeing research and data and tools that were being used to transfer speech to text or text to speech, but all of this has nothing to do with a human speaking to an audience. But it could be utilized. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 100%. Like in these research papers, you would see that researchers was trying to tune energy or pitch or frequency. They were trying to analyze all of these different aspects of communication to maybe make a machine sound more human or to add pauses to speech generated by a machine. So they were like analyzing and dealing with a lot of these factors, which quite often speech coaches and other people give feedback on.
Right.
So I would see that there were all of these factors that they were taking out of data, but that was not being used to help people communicate better.
So you had a little light bulb go on.
Yeah.
Maybe a big light bulb.
That's exactly what.
All right. And number two?
Number two was the fact that as I was working at internships, as I was going to networking events, job interviews, I realized that I wasn't an effective communicator. I had good ideas. I wanted to put myself out there, but just being afraid of communicating and expressing my ideas effectively held me back. And once I started getting a little more confident expressing that, and I noticed that it wasn't just me, people across the world, no matter where they're from or if English was their native language or not, struggle with effective communication. They struggle with expressing their ideas effectively. And I thought something really has to be done about it. And then I noticed that there were companies who were trying to spend time and resources on it, but it was limited only to the C-suite of employees, or it wasn't like really being put out there for so many people. I would see developers in meetings, and developers are the worst communicators, by the way, because we always go into everything so technical, and we kind of always digress from the topic. So developers are the worst communicators. And when that happens, that causes so much intangible loss of time and revenue to the company when there's miscommunication happening in these meetings. So that was like one of the biggest factors that I realized is there's so many of these pockets of communication practices that we can improve if only people had access to better tools or better resources to help them improve. And that's really another thing that was behind the creation of Orai.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I agree with you on both points. And I think I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, where you said there's this loss maybe of time and energy because of miscommunication. And I've seen that recently with people who, for example, are giving TED Talks. And I mean, a TED Talk is in some ways like the pinnacle of public speaking. It's what people dream of. And generally speaking, you only get one shot, right? I mean, it's unlikely that you're going to get a second or a third TED Talk. But people don't know how to prepare. Maybe they're thinking of it like what you said, like, well, if I just go to the gym one day and work really hard. I feel bad because sometimes they blow their one shot. They blow their one TED Talk. In my field of human trafficking, that means a lot. And so I really like the idea that this is accessible to anybody all the time, whenever they have time. And it's not the one shot, one day at the gym, but they can use it daily, weekly, monthly, and improve and watch their progress.
Yeah, that I completely agree with you.
It's called Orai, is that correct? And so
That is correct.
Why Orai? What does that mean?
That's something that came up because we were thinking about how do we use the term AI, which is like still very hip and common in startup names, but how do we link that somewhere with speech? So we figured out the word OR as an orator and AI as an artificial intelligence. So that's like how we created that small 4-letter word, Orai. And when we created that, we were thinking, hey, maybe in the future we can have something like Siri or Alexa that, hey, Orai, give me feedback on my speech. So when very early, before we even had the app, that's what we were thinking about. And yeah, the name kind of stuck with us from then.
And then I saw on your website, it said, everything's going to be all right. And I was like, oh my God, like we're all Jamaican now, right? It's cute.
Yeah, that was just something that actually came from other people, that someone just messaged us that everything's going to be all right. And we're like, why did we not think of that?
Well, you'll take it now that you have it.
Yeah.
I'm a speech coach. Is Orai going to put me out of business? Should I be afraid of this app? Should I never show this interview?
Definitely not. We are actually working with a lot of speech coaches who are using Orai to scale communication coaching, scale their training across enterprises. Because one thing is the fact that when you're doing training sessions, after that there is a need for reinforcement. There is a need to help people continuously practice what you've taught. So that's where Orai helps speech coaches, is to take their content and then help them make sure that their practices and whatever they're teaching is being followed through. And then the other thing is the fact that AI is definitely not there where speech coaches are in so many places. For example, the speech coach can really quickly understand the context of the speech. But for AI to really understand the context, that's really hard. Even top researchers are finding it hard to understand context. And if you talk about more complex things like coherence, are things flowing together? Is there structure? Those things are really, really hard for a machine to kind of get an idea on. So yeah, in those places, it'll take a while for AI to catch up.
So I'm safe for a while.
I mean, I feel like with technology, you never know, that we might be writing code that writes their own code. So developers might be out of a job in the next 10 years as well.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I'm just teasing you because I think it's a great idea. And especially because to do all of that. So with my work, I start people at the very beginning and I say, what do you want to talk about? What do you feel passionate about? What is it that you think people need to hear? So that's this whole brainstorming process, right? Then there's, okay, how are we going to structure this and what stories and examples are we going to reuse, which is working on the content and the organization. And then there's the delivery. And so that may be a number of sessions, right? And so but to continue on with this work that you're saying, the feedback on things like filler words and pausing, like I can teach somebody the right way to do those, but I like this because it allows them to practice on their own and it saves them money, really.
the that those are like all those factors is kind of what you're considering as you were building Rai. The accessibility of it was really important, and the on-demand nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
Today, no one really wants to wait for anything. If you submit something, you don't want to wait 1 minute to get its results. So
Right.
those are one of the biggest factors
Right.
you were thinking as to Rai
Uh-huh.
as well.
And I think, too, if I remember correctly, instant feedback helps people to learn faster than when they have to wait for their result to know if it's a correct answer or not.
Definitely, something we noticed with quite a few of our users is around filler words. A lot of people don't realize how many ums and ers they use, but once they started seeing an array that, hey, I had 10 ums, I had 15 ums, within like 5 to 10 speeches, we would just see an instant reduction in the amount of ums and ers or filler words that people are using. Because once you start noticing that, there's like a switch that turns up in your mind. So before you use an you start thinking or pausing, which is much better than using an or a. That was like one of the things we noticed is just adding a simple thing as and a counter automatic just turns on a switch in people's minds.
Right. That's great. And you can bet that when I was preparing for this interview, I was really thinking about if I was using filler words or not.
This is one of the biggest things we have to keep in mind is that if we have a single and or a, we start losing credibility because you're the person who's selling a public speaking application and you're using filler words. So, yeah, this is something we have to think about.
Along these lines of working and improving, can you tell us about some people who have had some great success with your app?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the stories that I really like talking about is we've had some parents who have given it to their young ones, like their sons and daughters, to practice for debates and speeches because they haven't had the time to train them or help them and get better. But when they give Orai, it's like something that they can just use automatically and then practice again to keep getting better, to keep getting higher scores and make the speech perfect. So when we hear back from customers like that, we've had like 2 or 3 stories of just kids using the application to improve for the high school debate and then winning the first or second prize. That just feels awesome when you hear that because you think about yourself back when you were a kid and you were taking part in those competitions and you were looking at a mirror and just trying to practice or just talking to your dog and seeing if they would hear your speech.
Yeah.
So that feels really awesome to hear. And on the second hand, we've had people talk about how this has helped them build a lot more confidence as they were practicing, as they were doing job interviews and talking to clients overseas. We had some people in Southeast Asia who emailed us that, hey, I used your application to practice for a job interview and I got my dream job. And I'm so thankful to you guys. And then similarly, someone told us about how they'd used Orai to practice and prepare for a pitch for a client that they were trying to get. And this is one of the biggest deals that they've gotten, and that's helping their company sustain their company. So when you hear like real stories like that, that really makes you feel that, okay, in some part you've made some difference to someone's life.
Absolutely.
And it kind of makes you really excited to start the day.
Right. Because everyone wants to feel that what they're doing is making a difference and it's making a positive difference.
Yeah.
It reminds me when I was in high school doing speech competitions, I did a talk about the way that you speak. Actually, this was in college. And it was a study of how many filler words people use and then how they are judged by the percentage of, or the quantity of filler words that they have. And so people had to listen to somebody using a certain amount of filler words. And I remember my first line of that paper was, people judge you by the way that you speak. I thought about this when you were talking about the person with the interview, because that's all they have, right? They see your face, so obviously they're judging on your face, so hopefully you look like fine. And then they're just judging, the rest of it is the way that you speak. And you could be actually horrible at the job, right? Excuse me. But if you speak really well, chances are they're going to be persuaded. And so even better when you're sincerely qualified for the job and you can present yourself in a persuasive way.
Yeah, it's definitely a problem that a lot of people have, right? Even if they're qualified, even if they know their stuff, it's just expressing that. That is one of the hardest challenges. Effectively, talking about what you are and being confident about everything you know and expressing that, that's not easy.
That's a learned skill. I agree.
Mhm.
If people want to learn more about Orai, where should they go?
We have our website. You can always check out at oraiapp.com. We have an active Twitter page, and through our website, you can also go to our blog and learn about different things and tips and tricks that we've put on public speaking. So yeah, definitely check those resources out.
Okay, so oraiapp.com. Twitter is it's the same handle,
Yes,
Orai app at Twitter, or sorry, on Twitter.
Orai app. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
And on Facebook. Okay.
on Facebook.
And how about the cost?
Right. So Orai is free for everyone to download and use, and we give 60 minutes of free usage to any user who wants to use Orai because we want to help people practice their speech and become better communicators. Also, our lessons are open to people to use and go through as well. So lots of things that we give for free. But if you really want to practice more, if you have an upcoming speech and you really need that hours and hours of practice, then you can buy the pro subscription for I, which is only $10 a month.
Right, which that's really cheap. That's like as many hours as you want every month.
Yeah, yeah, that lets you record unlimited.
That's awesome. I mean, I can just imagine if you have a 10-minute speech, you got, I don't know, let's say you only have a week to practice, but you have unlimited
Yeah.
hours of getting feedback. Just to run through again, it's telling you, or the things that it focuses on are those filler words, like, you know, your
Mm-hmm.
pace, so your speed,
Mm-hmm.
your if you're varying your pitch, is that one of them?
Your energy, yeah.
Oh, energy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whether or not you're pausing sufficiently,
Mm-hmm.
and then I forgot the last one.
Your clarity,
Oh,
your
clear.
enunciation.
Right.
Yeah,
So if you're not a native speaker of English, then that would be hugely helpful.
definitely. And in the application, we also support various accents. So we support around 10 different accents of English. So if you use English with a more Indian accent, or if you use English with a more British accent or Nigerian accent, even. So we support different accents of English, which helps
That
people
is
become,
great.
you know,
So you don't have to be speaking American English. You can be speaking Nigerian English, and it's going to correct you according to the Nigerian accent.
yeah, it's not going to completely penalize you and say, or it's not going to detect your words incorrectly. So,
Right.
and give you a bad transcript or anything. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so impressed with the work that you guys have done.
Thank you.
Looks like we're out of time, but thank you again, Paritosh, and I'll put
Yeah.
those links in the notes so that people can find you and your app.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Nancy.
All right, I'll see you later. Bye bye.
Bye bye.